Okay, so today, guys, I am here with Tristan and his Miata, which is a little bit different than your average NB Miata. It's got something a little bit different, just a little bit. Okay, so today I'm going to walk you guys through and ask Tristan questions about what this thing has basically become. So why don't you start off with like what the life of this thing was originally before all of this started happening. So.
Yeah, so this is my 2000 Miata. It's an NB1. I bought this bone stock, 52,000 miles. It was perfect. It was just mint. It was nice and completely unmolested.
Okay.
And at that point, I started getting into, you know, autocross and motorsports and drifting. And I started upgrading the car. I put an LSD in it. I swapped the 5-speed to a 6-speed. I did a bunch of basic stuff, suspension, tires, you know, just normal mods. And then I bought a second NB and built a bored out 1.9 in that. And this is stock of 1.8 liters. So I bored out and forged internals that motor, a little BP4W that is now in pieces. And then I swapped that in, turbocharged that engine. And
okay,
that was
so for a while, this lived as stroked out,
yeah,
turboed setup.
I guess actually it started its life bone stock, and then I boosted it, turbocharged it, and then I swapped from the stock motor to the 1.9 and then kept that turbo. And then eventually, after a few events, I put some fucking holes in the block of that 1.9.
Yeah, so I'll get some close-ups of that guy, but essentially we threw piston
number three
straight out the block. I have some other footage of when we were actually tearing this thing apart, but yet it blew a big old hole straight out the side right there. And we took a look at the head, and like surprisingly, it wasn't as bad as you think it would be. I mean, it was toast.
Top end is okay.
But it was like I was thinking like we were gonna have like a hole through the head and a hole through the block, but this was still pretty serious. It went through the baffle, out the block. The rod was bent. Wasn't the rod on something else? Wasn't like piston one bent, or like the rod?
Well, yeah, so two of those other pistons in there, the rods rather, are completely warped. They're super banana-y. If I was still had that on the stand, I'd flip it over.
But this was super reliable for a period of time, right?
I got like 20,000 miles out of it. For the amount of money I put into building the motor. Probably wasn't worth it, but I was going really hard in that, and I just kept turning up the boost trying to make 300 horsepower on it. And oh man, it was a fucking blast. I loved it.
But you made 300 horsepower on it, didn't you?
I didn't put it on a dyno. It was probably close. It had to be like just under, because that thing was starting to fucking like it was holding with you know, BMW 335i's. It was a little bit slower than a new A90 Supra. Like it was fast for a Miata. Man, it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I got one ride in this setup before it blew, and that was great.
We went sliding around that parking lot, right?
Yeah. I mean, you mean the closed course?
I mean, yeah, the racetrack.
Yeah, the racetrack. But that was a great setup, and that was super responsive, and that was like kind of as far as that would have been pushed before eventually something would happen and you do something like this. So why don't you tell us what this is for people who don't already know?
This is a Honda J32A2 out of a 2003 Acura TL Type S. It's just a 3.2 liter V6, VTEC, single overhead cam.
It's a single? Nice.
Yeah, little single dingles. So the reason I went with this is that at the time that I blew up the car, I had one of these. I had a 2003 TL Type S, and I was like, it's kind of ratty. I'm just going to fucking rip the motor out of that and build it in here. And then I ended up trading that car for a Jeep, but I still love the idea of the J-swap because this is an aluminum block, whereas the BP4W was a cast iron block. So you're really only adding like 25 pounds to the engine. It keeps it nice and light, and I deleted AC and all that, so it didn't affect the balance.
Is the weight is it going to be like a weird balance?
No? So it's going to be, because I deleted power steering and AC off of this, it should be like zero weight gain overall, which is pretty crazy because this motor is 1.4 liters of displacement.
Two more cylinders.
And, you got an extra head, so you would think that would weigh a lot more, but that's the difference between aluminum and cast iron. It makes like 260 horsepower, 240 pound-feet of torque. The reason I went with this over like an LS or a small block Chevy is because I got to keep my transmission and differential. So from the engine back, it's all stock, and that simplifies a lot of things. It means I keep my speedometer. That means I keep all my fucking gauges except for TAC. It also obviously reduces the price a lot because now I'm not having to swap out the transmission and get a custom drive shaft and get custom axles and diff and everything.
That adds so much more. If you're like, this is just an engine swap, so everything back is all the same. Transmission's the same, diff's the same, rear end's the same, axles, everything. And what's really cool is that this has a subframe kit that you can get with it and a transmission plate kit that you can get with it.
Yeah, so the kit is from Superfast Minis. It's a JV6. You can swap any J-Series V6 into these Miatas. I mean, it's great that you can see the custom tubular subframe. It came with this custom oil pan and pickup.
Oh, man.
Which that oil pan, everyone comments, is the weirdest looking fucking thing. And it's now the lowest point on the car, so I need to build a skid plate for it, because I'm definitely going to bash a hole in it at some point.
I'll link this whole subframe kit below for anybody that's interested. And then this engine you've gone completely through.
Yep.
So I tore it down to the block.
From the bottom up. Yep.
Yeah.
Honed the cylinders. I didn't bore them or anything, but just returned it completely to.
You just used the ball hone and a drill, I assume?
Yep. That's it. And then, checked, plastic gauged all the bearings on it, made sure everything was, nice and tidy, re-ringed it, everything.
Did you redeck the block and the head? Or?
Just the heads. The blocks was fine. I mean, it never blew a head gasket or anything, so it's fine. And it's only had 80K miles on the motor when I got it, and everything was perfectly within spec.
Beautiful. We got a little paint job, I see.
Yeah, just a little bit. I wish I'd gotten a little more creative with it, but... Maybe next time I turn the motor
it's
down.
good. You got the gold there, and you got the gold there, and you got the green here, and then you already just mentioned you have a livery coming.
Ooh,
Is that gonna be gold?
I'm not gonna say anything about it until it's here. I got a few weeks before that comes in, but that will definitely transform the look of the car, and it'll really sell the race car look, I think.
Yeah. So it's currently Sunday. And you're planning on having this done hopefully around Wednesday next week.
Yeah, so, I mean, the turnaround on this motor has been pretty fast. I blew up the car 3 months ago, and it took me a while before I decided what swap I wanted to go to. From the time that I got this engine to now, I want to say less than 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty darn quick, because I remember tearing that thing apart and stealing parts off of that. We took the flywheel off of that and a couple other bits and bobs. That all got sold to fund this project here.
Yeah.
But turnaround's definitely been pretty quick.
And that was pulling the motor, getting this motor, tearing it down, rebuilding it, and that was actually longer than getting it into the car. And now it's just a lot of wiring work. It's little things, figuring out cooling, figuring out fuel, figuring out everything electronic on it.
Yeah, so we'll go inside and take the electronics in a minute, but if you guys are enjoying this, I wouldn't even say midway. You're almost done with this thing.
It should be done in a couple of days.
It looks torn apart, but the dash just went in today. A lot of this is going to get cleaned up today, and so if in a couple weeks you guys want to see the final product of this thing actually driving and swinging, maybe on a closed course,
maybe
we can do that. It'll be soon. This thing is almost done. Trust me. A lot of people say their projects are almost done, but the rate that this thing has come together is pretty incredible.
I have no life outside of this car at the moment. I just want to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. You're also taking up the whole garage, so it'd be nice to free that up. So Tristan just finished up, or almost finished up the wiring just the other day. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've had to do regarding wiring? So you've got the J-Series, you've got the whole engine harness, right?
Correct.
And then have you spliced that together with the Miata body harness? Is that how you've done it?
So a little bit. Another reason that this swap is pretty easy is because the engine harness and the body harness on the Miata are completely separate, so you can remove the entire engine harness and just swap it. Yeah. And it's the same with the Acura for the most part. It wasn't too much wiring work, to be honest. I mean, you can see back there, I added a new fuse block, I added some relays for switch power.
Yep.
So I tried to simplify a lot of the work that I needed to do, but ultimately the only things that I really needed to make this car run were to wire switch power, ground, and constant power to the ECU.
Okay.
And then I needed to tap into the fuel pump relay, which is under the dash, and then ran that to the fuel pump output on the JV6 ECU.
So you've got the Miata body ECU and harness in here, and then the Honda stuff is all separate.
Correct.
And then you've just connected batteries and whatnot together.
Yeah, there's not too many things that needed to be spliced. I mean, alternator, starter, those needed to be spliced into the body harness of the Miata, and then, of course, anything that's related to the ECU.
And then you've got some gauges here. What do we have? AEM?
Water pump, glow shift.
Oh.
So I have water pump and oil pressure in there.
Okay, very nice.
And fucking mosquitoes. Yeah, that's all I really need to just make sure the engine is running well enough. I have an AFR, but I don't have a three gauge pod. I don't want it to be one of my fucking vents, and I'm running the stock ECU, so I'm just
yeah, that's fine.
Do I need the wideband for right now? It's running the stock ECU.
So where'd you run all the wires through? Did you drill an extra hole in the firewall, or is there already a hole with the grommet?
I just cut the. I mean, not actually that much was ran through here. Just the gauges and then the fan control relays. Those are the fan grounds there.
Okay, so you just cut that into the main.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful.
One issue I did encounter that no one had really talked about at the time was that on the Honda V6 on the back for the water outlet, both of them point out this way, stock.
Yeah.
So I flipped over the cap for the thermostat, And if you can see way in the back there, there's a kind of a chrome or aluminum water neck. Back here,
yeah.
And there's the fan control sensor is on the bottom of that,
okay,
which is fine when it's turned upside down and is facing up, but because I flipped that so I can run the radiator hoses, one going out this way, one going out that way,
yeah,
I can't plug that fucking sensor in. It just runs straight into the transmission, which is why I have tapped the wires for the fan control relays. So I tapped into the one relay over here and then the one relay over there,
okay,
and then run those wires in, and I've wired them to the fog light switch on the stock Miata dash because I didn't want to add any switches, and I don't have fog lights anyway. Or cruise control, actually. I wired one to cruise control, one for fog, so I can manage exactly how much cooling I want.
Yeah, so cruise control's been deleted out of this?
Yeah, cruise control's deleted, AC's deleted, power steering's just looped the lines. I will probably add power steering back eventually. That was another clearancing issue because the power steering pump factory sits right here, and this intake is flipped. So from the front wheel drive application, the throttle body would point out this way, and obviously that's not going to work here.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took off the intake runners that go up into the intake, and then welded the EGR shut, and then blocked off. They can be mirrored. I guess it was the thought being that for different applications they could route the intake in different ways. And so I flipped the two. It's a two-piece intake manifold that kind of meshes like this. Flipped it around, closed off the EGR ports on both sides, and now the intake faces out this way.
This whole intake plenum has been swapped 180.
Yeah, 180
okay,
degrees
neat.
around, and it's kind of convenient that they allow you to do that. To be honest,
It's also nice that you blocked off the EGR, so that's another little bit that you got rid of.
Yeah, I deleted pretty much everything emissions related. I mean, back here there's like idle warm up stuff that's been deleted. I'm just deleting the lines that run to the throttle body, the coolant lines, because that's just for heating for cold weather starts and keeping the throttle body from icing. But this car is really not going to see that much daily driving anymore. It's just going to be a summer car and drift car and race car, whatever.
Yeah. So all of this harness is all Honda, and then that's all going into a stock Honda ECU right now?
Yeah, it's just all running straight into the factory ECU. I had to pull the mobilizer chip on it because these cars came with factory chipped keys, but yeah, it wasn't that hard. You just literally wiggle the fucking immobilizer out and call it a day.
Okay, so you didn't have to desolder any surface chips or anything off of the...
it's just 4 bolts, pull the cover of the ECU, and then just wiggle the chip back and forth until it pops off, and that's it.
Awesome. And then the battery's in the rear on this?
Yeah, it's in the trunk.
Okay. That's stock, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it actually would have been kind of convenient to wire everything in the engine bay. I could have put all the relays in there, but that's why I had to end up using the parcel shelf on the back for space for wiring. There was just no space under the dash.
There's almost enough room here to do kind of a V-mount setup. Almost.
I mean, maybe, but...
if you did...
I'm not sure how much benefit I would really gain from that, unless I ducted it right. If I had big hood louvers, maybe, because then it would force the air up through it.
Oh, and if you guys can see, this thing is sticking a fair bit out of the whole engine bay. So what's the game plan with that?
It's got a big old fucking hole in the hood. I mean, they make a custom intake, which you hack off the throttle body, weld it shut, and then you put a plate, an adapter that goes like this, and it sits under the hood, but... I
so your whole intake would be sitting right here?
Yeah, it actually looks really janky, but it would just relocate the throttle body to over here.
Where is this going? Are you just going to put a cone here?
Yep, just a cone filter right on the front and no hood, so it should get plenty of cooling. Just hopefully it doesn't rain during the drift days because that's going to suck. I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that.
I mean, they have socks that you put over your intake cones that let air through but not as much water, so you could do something like that.
Yeah.
Because I know if you have twin turbo Lamborghini setups and they have the cones down by the rear wheels, they put these socks over them.
Yeah, that's a bridge I'm gonna have to cross when I get there. I still need to get an air filter for it.
Well, it's summer right now, so for now you're fine.
This car is kind of being thrown together more, not half-assed. I am trying to do everything correctly, but I'm doing the minimum that it will take to get the car running because my timeline is so short at this point.
So, are you doing any suspension stuff down here, or has suspension stuff already been done?
Well, I mean, it needs to go in for alignment because obviously I swapped the subframes. But I am doing a cheap little angle mod where I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to pull the inner tie rods out and then space out the bump stops for the steering, which will give me 5 degrees extra steering. It's just
so that's where the tie rods kind of bottom into the rack almost. So don't you just move them out with some spacers?
Exactly.
So that the tie rod can actually go farther into the rack. Yeah,
correct.
That's pretty common.
And then you bring the outer tie rod in to compensate, and that's it.
Yeah. I know on newer cars that like some people have tried doing stuff like that and they actually really don't like it because they have obviously steering angle sensors and they'll see that you steer farther than you're supposed to.
Yeah, that's shouldn't be an issue on this. Fucking
but that should
old
actually
cars,
be simple as compared to like cutting and rewelding the knuckle, moving the tire rod placement.
I mean, I'd considered getting custom knuckles and doing the whole like full drift suspension setup, but I just didn't think I'd have the time to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the stock angle is pretty limiting on the Miata, but it's a small chassis.
Because at some point, if you cut this and move it farther in, wouldn't that give you more angle?
Yeah. So actually, it's clearance to
the theoretical.
On the inside, that's the bigger issue.
Oh yeah,
with the brake,
the caliper hitting the coilover.
I think you just have to relocate the caliper
and
slightly.
Then here's part of the new subframe, which is pretty neat looking, and then the funky looking oil pan.
It kind of scares me how low it sits.
Yeah.
It's definitely the lowest point on the car now.
It's pretty interesting. But is that just because the factory oil pan on these just hits the rack?
Yeah, it would just go straight into the rack. And the pickup tube is right on the front of the motor, so it's why the big box is on the front.
So if you bash that in the front there, you just smush your pickup tube and then
hopefully it doesn't
not be having the best
really
day.
Not out of the question with how low this car is/was.
Yeah. But are you just going to do some, once you get the rest of the front in here, do a
probably
sort of plate?
Yeah, probably just steal a stop sign or something. Just drill it in there. Just to have some sort of protection, because I don't like the idea of it just hanging.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary.
Also why I have the oil pressure gauge, so I know if something gets real fucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about what it needs right now. Shortly, me and a electrical engineering major friend are going to do his final thesis as a full like 80s style custom dash for the car.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully that comes together soon.
So wait, so this dash is going to get changed up in a bit here?
Yeah, you know those like old like CRT like 80s displays where it'd like go up with our, or like an S2000, you know?
Yeah.
That sort of style is what we're gonna do. Probably a 3D printed custom PCB on the back.
Yeah, because there's also like the 300ZX has that like crazy wave tachometer, so that'd be pretty neat in this.
But he's like, he wanted to hang out more with me, and I'm like, yeah, let's make your fucking project a project between us. I mean,
let's make your and my dreams come true.
Exactly. And
these are cool. I commented on these the first time I was in your car.
Yeah, the little 3-piece wheel vents, although some of the rings are off.
Where'd you get these again?
I don't know, off some dude on Facebook Marketplace. I don't know where he got them. There's a few people that 3D print them, but I don't think I've seen ones that look exactly like this before. So
yeah, those are great. And then factory Nardi and Miatas, which I love. Yeah. I wish they still did that, because for a period of time, like, all of Ferrari's steering wheels were Momos.
Yeah.
And then WRXs used to come with Momos, and Miatas came with Nardis, and now everything's just boring and has airbags and stuff like that.
I mean, it has an airbag, but honestly, I've never felt the need to replace it. I like the look of the wheel.
I do as well.
It's nice and simple. There's no fucking buttons and everything.
It's a good size.
Yeah. I mean, it's not... I think I would probably still prefer driving with a aftermarket wheel, but it's fine for what it is. Perfectly acceptable.
I agree. And then, do you have a hard top for this? You do, right?
I got stolen.
Oh.
Yeah, I only have the soft top.
Big sad.
Big sad. You know about it.
Yep, so Honda ECU is going in glove box, and it fits perfectly. Do the wires reach?
Wires through. Yeah, I left plenty of slack in them, so it should have plenty of room, but it's just how do I want to route it? I think it's chop a fucking hole in the glove box here, let the wires come through. Makes the most sense.
Yeah, so then you won't even have to cut the sides.
No, in theory.
And it's gonna look stock.
Yeah, it'll be fucking...
Every Miata has an ECU in the glove box.
Of course, where else would you mount them?
Okay guys, so I think I'll end the video here. Huge thank you to Tristan for letting me come over and
let me hop out of the car first.
Distract him and take away his time from actually putting this thing back together. But hopefully, if everything goes to plan, it should be done pretty soon, and then we can do a follow-up video and talk about everything, all the problems from here to getting it actually running, because like putting the engine and the transmission and getting everything together is like pretty simple, but then it's like when you go to crank it and something doesn't work, that's when you really like, it's when you become a man.
Hopefully
you figure
it's not
out
catastrophic. Yeah, with any luck, it'll just be little things.
Yeah, but everything here has been gone through like 2 and 3 times, and everything's been plastic gauged, and the engine looks like it's doing good, so I believe in you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Tristan's Instagram will be in the description, as well as links to some of the stuff that he's done here. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.